There are bars in New Orleans where the whiskey burns slower than sin, and if you listen closely, you can hear the devil counting his change. Welcome to Tongue of the Serpent, a Southern Gothic horror podcast where memory has teeth and bargains bleed through time. Tonight's story is the Crossroads bargain. Renard Blackwood has been chasing the ghosts of other people's stories, and tonight, one of them finally answers. But when the answer wears a smile carved from smoke and flame, sometimes it's better not to ask the question at all. The Crossroads bargain. There is a bar just off Bourbon Street that doesn't have a name, at least not one that anyone remembers. It crouches between a voodoo shop and a tarot reader's stall, painted a peeling shade of crimson that once might have been alluring. The sign above the door has long since faded, and no one bothers to repaint it. Inside, the smoke curls like languid serpents around the cracked leather bar stools, while jazz drips slow and sultry from a battered jukebox. The windows are open, despite the night air being thick as syrup, and the scent of whiskey mingles with herbs, sage perhaps, or something darker. Renard Blackwood sits at the far end of the bar, his back to the room, his hands wrapped around a glass that hadn't been full in a while. His mind wanders through the winding alleys of memory, places where Evelyn's story flickers and fades, slipping from his grasp like water through cracked hands. He's been following the scent of answers for weeks now, and every trail seems to bend back on itself, spiraling into confusion. It's almost as if the city itself doesn't want him to know. He's debating whether to buy another drink or simply leave when a shadow shifts beside him, sliding into the next stool as effortlessly as a cat slipping through an open door. Renard doesn't have to look to know who it is. The air gets colder, and there's a faint scent of sulfur, masked by something sweet and bitter. Absinthe, he realizes, when Lucifer Morningstar gestures for the bartender's attention.
You know,
Lucifer says conversationally, with a smile as languid and sharp as a knife.
people who dig for stories in graveyards tend to find things best left buried.
Renard doesn't respond. He knows better than to acknowledge the devil's interest. But Lucifer's smile only grows, his eyes gleaming like coins pulled from the bottom of a murky well. The bargain. Lucifer sips his absinthe and watches Renard as if he's a particularly interesting specimen pinned under glass. He doesn't push, doesn't demand Renard speak first, and that makes it worse. Silence stretches between them like a violin string pulled taut, ready to snap.
You're looking for her.
Lucifer Morningstar says at last, rolling the glass between his fingers.
Evelyn. Sweet haunted thing. You think after all this time she'd be better at hiding, but old wounds have a way of bleeding through.
Renard tenses, but doesn't answer. He's learned that the devil's words are like snake bites. Once they sink in, they're impossible to extract without leaving poison behind. Lucifer leans closer, his eyes bright with something almost feral.
You want her story, don't you? All the jagged little shards of it. You think that if you piece them together, it'll all make sense. she'll make sense. But stories like hers, they don't settle into neat little lines. They scatter like crows at dawn.
Renard knows he shouldn't respond, but curiosity prickles at his skin like fire ants.
You know something,
he says at last, each word dragged out like a confession. Lucifer's smile widens.
Oh, I know many things, especially about Evelyn. You could say that I've been keeping tabs on her since before your cityhead streets.
He tips back his glass, savoring the taste like it's a memory caught on his tongue.
But stories have costs. You want answers? You will have to earn them.
Renard narrows his eyes.
What do you want?
Simple. A relic. An old dusty thing buried in St. Louis Cemetery No. 1. A piece of Evelyn's past, tucked away where no one remembers it. You bring it to me, and I'll tell you things that no one else knows. Things even Evelyn herself has forgotten.
Renard hesitates, and Lucifer's smile becomes indulgent, almost mocking.
Don't think it will be easy.
Lucifer purrs.
That place is older than memory, and it guards its secrets well. Spirits, wards, and things far worse than bones. But you like puzzles, don't you? You've already proven you can't leave well enough alone.
Renard clenches his jaw. Knowledge gnaws at him like a rat in the walls, and despite every warning screaming in his head, he nods.
Fine,
Renard says.
I'll get it.
Lucifer raises his glass in a mocking toast.
Good boy. Don't say I didn't warn you.
Renard's heart thunders, but he ignores it, focusing on the single, gleaming thread of possibility. Truth at last, even if it's barbed and bleeding. Descent into the crypt. Midnight wraps itself around the city like a velvet shroud, smothering sound and light until the world seems to hold its breath. Renard moves through the shadows, a wraith among the sleeping dead, slipping through the iron gates of St. Louis Cemetery No. 1 without a sound. The air is thick, humid and rancid with mildew, clinging to his skin like the breath of the forgotten. In the distance, the city hums with life, jazz and laughter bleeding through the night. But here, silence coils tight, as if the cemetery itself resents the intrusion. He doesn't let himself think too long about the stories whispered over whiskey and tarot cards, tales of crypts that guard their secrets with teeth and shadow. He's already chosen this path, and regrets won't stop his feet from moving. The mausoleum looms before him, half buried in ivy and crumbling stone, the marble cracked and blistered from centuries of neglect. Its face bears the sigil of some forgotten family, a faded fleur-de-lis tangled in thorny vines. Renard tests the door, and it holds fast, refusing him entry. He digs his fingers into the gap, forcing his weight against the ancient wood. With a groan that sounds almost like protest, it gives way, scraping against the stone floor like a corpse shifting in its coffin. Dust spirals into the air, and the scent of old, damp earth wafts out, sour and unwelcoming. Inside, he almost expects nothing, just a tomb, silent and hollow. Instead, he finds stairs descending into the belly of the earth. His pulse quickens, and he knows this is older than the graves above, older than the city itself. a liminal space, an underworld carved from darkness and bone. He hesitates, then pushes forward, the air growing colder with each step. The walls are etched with symbols, runes that flicker with faint, sullen light, pulsing like distant, dying stars. Shadows writhe along the edges of his vision, and whispers crawl through his thoughts, brushing against his mind like spider legs. Deeper still, the air feels denser, almost solid, and his breath comes out in shallow gasps. The ground beneath his feet seems to pulse like a heartbeat, and Renard swears he hears chanting, low, mournful, and filled with a sorrow that cuts straight through his spine. At the heart of the chamber, a stone pedestal rises from the ground, and atop it sits a small, ornate box. It gleams in the pale, sickly light, etched with intricate sigils that wind around it like serpents. Renard approaches slowly, his fingers tingling as he reaches out, almost afraid to touch it. The box hums beneath his fingertips, vibrating with a power that feels ancient and vast, like the roots of the world itself. He hesitates, knowing that this is more than just an artifact. This is something alive, something that remembers. Still, he grips it and lifts it from the pedestal. The temperature drops sharply, and the shadows close in, thick and suffocating. He almost stumbles as pain shoots through his skull, and then the trap. Memories flood his mind, vicious and unyielding, dragging him under like a drowning man. He sees Evelyn in a sunlit garden, her laugh bright and wild, tangled in golden light. A figure stands just out of sight, their face a blur, but Evelyn's smile is radiant, full of unguarded joy. The scene shifts now. Evelyn is on her knees, cradling something shattered in her hands, a locket glinting in the gloom. Her face is carved from grief, eyes hollow and bruised as she whispers a name, soft, desperate, swallowed by sorrow. Another flash. Evelyn standing on the banks of the river, the wind lashing through her hair, her mouth moving soundlessly as if begging the sky itself for mercy. Renard stumbles, dropping to his knees, the box pressed against his chest as if it could root him to the present. The memories claw at him, ancient and raw, leaving him gasping. He barely registers the soft clap of hands behind him, but the voice, low, velvet, and edged with cruel amusement, cuts through the haze.
Well done.
Lucifer purrs.
You've got quite the talent for fetching lost things.
Renard grits his teeth, forcing himself to his feet, fury blazing in his eyes.
You said you'd tell me her story. What the hell is this?
Lucifer smirks, untroubled, inspecting his nails as if bored.
No, I never promised the whole story, did I? I promised fragments. And that?
He gestures at the box, his eyes glinting like coals.
Is the most important fragment of all.
Realization dawns slowly, cold and bitter.
This isn't just a memory.
Renard says, his voice breaking around the truth.
It's a piece of her. An essence. You never intended to share anything. You meant to take it for yourself.
Lucifer spreads his hands, an elegant, mocking shrug.
You make it sound so villainous. But memories are fickle things, easily lost, easily claimed. Evelyn's been leaving bits of herself scattered throughout the ages, and I'm simply collecting.
Renard's hands tremble, knuckles white against the box.
You bastard.
Careful now,
Lucifer murmurs, stepping closer, his voice a deadly caress.
Bargains are binding, and you have done your part. I never said the story would be hers. Sometimes it's just the pieces that matter, the essence, the root of it all. And I think this one's mine now.
Renard Blackwood fights the urge to lunge at him, but Lucifer just laughs, a rich, dangerous sound that echoes through the crypt.
I did warn you.
Lucifer says, voice softening, almost sympathetic.
Stories that hide in the dark do so for a reason. They are meant to be kept buried.
Renard stared at the box, the memory hovering delicately, waiting to be collected. He slams the box on the ground, fragments glinting on the crypt's stone floor like spilled jewels. The hum of power faded, leaving only a hollow, aching silence that filled the room like regret. He could feel the ghost of Evelyn's presence slipping through his fingers, a whisper of sunlit gardens and shattered keepsakes crumbling into dust. Lucifer's applause was a slow, sarcastic clap, each slap of palm against palm, echoing off the stone walls like a mocking heartbeat. Renard didn't turn to look at him, his eyes fixed on the fragments as if they might knit themselves back together if he just glared hard enough.
That
Lucifer drawled.
was unexpected, I must say, Renard. I didn't think you had it in you to make the selfless choice. Rather unlike you.
Renard Blackwood clenched his jaw, knuckles white around the edge of the stone sarcophagus.
You tricked me.
He spat.
You knew all along what it was. You knew what it would cost.
Lucifer shrugged, his coat whispering against the crypt's cold air like dead leaves stirring on a forgotten path.
Curiosity, my dear Renard, is the most fatal of flaws. You wanted to know Evelyn's secrets. You wanted to pry open the past and make sense of it all. And now you've smashed it to pieces. How terribly tragic.
Renard felt a surge of something hot and sharp bloom inside his chest. Anger, regret, or perhaps just the sting of being played like a marionette on strings, far older and more tangled than he'd imagined.
You never intended to share Evelyn's story.
He said bitterly.
You wanted to take it for yourself. Another trophy on your shelf of stolen memories.
Lucifer smiled faintly, the kind of smile that belonged to ancient statues and faded frescoes, enigmatic, untouched by time.
You may never understand, Renard. Some memories are more than stories. They are pieces of us, raw and irreplaceable. And you, being the curious little magpie you are, couldn't resist plucking at the glittering thread.
Renard couldn't decide whether to scream or laugh, so he did neither. Instead, he crouched beside the broken relic, brushing his fingers over the remnants as if they might still hold a heartbeat.
It's gone now. Whatever you wanted, whatever you thought you could claim, it's gone.
Lucifer Morningstar merely nodded, as if this were the inevitable conclusion he'd foreseen all along.
Gone, yes. But Evelyn will feel its absence, and that, too, is kind of a power. Memories never truly die, Renard. They simply find new places to root.
The devil turned, his footfalls tapping against stone as he vanished back into the labyrinth of the crypt, leaving Renard alone with the pieces of a story he would never fully understand. Aftermath. When Renard Blackwood finally emerged from the crypt, dawn had broken, a weak, uncertain light filtering through the cracked iron gates of the cemetery. The city stretched before him, yawning and waking, unaware of the choices made beneath its feet. There was a subtle shift in the air, as if the city itself were exhaling after holding its breath far too long. He glanced back at the crypt's door, now half swallowed by creeping ivy, and wondered if he would ever remember the secrets it had held, or the memories it had housed. Maybe it was better this way. Shattered and scattered, fragments of something too fragile to hold. Lucifer's voice echoed from somewhere unseen, curling around him like smoke.
You know, Renard, some stories are better left unfinished, and some truths are better buried.
Renard didn't respond, didn't look back. Instead, he slipped his hands into his coat pockets and walked away from the cemetery, feeling both lighter and lonelier than before. He knew he'd lost his chance at answers, at understanding Evelyn, at unraveling the twisted knot of her past. But strangely, for once, the not knowing didn't claw at him. Perhaps, he mused, some mysteries weren't meant to be solved, and maybe, just maybe, he could live with that. Epilogue. Evelyn felt it, a breath of something slipping through her soul, like fingers brushing against cobwebs in a forgotten room. She paused on the balcony, eyes fixed on the waking city, though she wasn't truly seeing it. For a moment, it was as if someone had whispered her name, just beyond the edge of hearing, and a shiver chased itself down her spine. Something had shifted. She couldn't say what or why, but she knew it the way a bird knows the wind has shifted, an instinct too deep to name. A memory flickered at the corner of her mind, a sunlit garden, the scent of warm earth, and someone's laughter intertwining with her own. It danced just out of reach, before dissolving like mist in morning light. She pressed her hand against her chest, as if trying to still the ache, and let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. The past had always been an unruly beast, gnawing at her heels, dragging its change through every moment. Maybe it couldn't be buried, not truly. Maybe it was always waiting, just under the surface, eager to claw its way back into the world. But dawn was spreading its soft gold across the rooftops, and Evelyn straightened her shoulders, forcing herself to move away from the railing. There were things to do, people to see, lives to stitch together like scraps of old fabric. One breath after another, one step at a time. Haunted, yes, but not broken. Never broken. Across the city, New Orleans stretched and yawned, the last clinging shadows retreating from the rising sun. The air hummed with uneasy peace, a balance restored, if only for a fragile moment. In the quiet of the quarter, a fox darted through the tangled alleys, red fur catching the morning light like a flicker of flame. He moved silently, a living whisper of choices made and consequences carried, slipping through the city's heart as if guarding a secret no one could ever truly own. Some bargains end in blood, others end in forgetting. Renard walked away from the crypt with both still clinging to him, And somewhere in the quarter, Evelyn felt the world shudder, as if the past had finally exhaled. You've been listening to Tongue of the Serpent, written and created by Loveday Funk. Wilson Ravel is the voice of Lucifer Morningstar, and Jared Savoy is the voice of Renard Blackwood. If the stories linger with you, leave a light burning and share the tale so the next traveler can find their way